there, but also Facebook Live friends out there, Dr. Shealy and myself. And we're getting ready to go in just about maybe less than a minute. And we'll cover a very important point. Biogenic system self-regulation today, and as well as sound and the brain and the frequencies and how the brain communicates, how it learns, the languages of the brain. So if you want to learn about yourself, this is the topic to listen to.
KICK, Vision Communications Incorporated, its management or advertisers. Vision Communications Incorporated is not responsible for the validity or accuracy of information presented on this program.
Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Norm Shealy and Dr. Sergey-Sorin. Get the health answers you need from the creator of Holistic Medicine and the 2020 Holistic Doctor of the Year. To be a part of the show, call 417-447-1777. Wellness Wednesday. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Norm Shealy and Dr. Sergey-Sorin.
Good afternoon. Here in this COVID monitored everything that we say, do, and hear, I do want to remind people that this is the time when you need to be careful about where you get your supplies. And the health food store I can recommend is Spring Valley Natural Foods, right there on South Glenstone, just next to FedEx office. It's got the greatest supply and the greatest help. I just walk in the store and there's someone to help me find things. I don't have to even ask. They're already asking me, what can I do for you today, Norm? And of course, they carry thousands of products, but they carry all my products. Dr. Shealy's Essentials, Dr. Shealy's Youth Wellness, Dr. Shealy's Eugesterone Cream, the real stuff. All of my Bliss oils, and my magnesium lotion, but thousands of other goodies. The health food store where I shop and where you should too. Spring Valley Natural Foods. And of course, in this pseudodemic time, fake-ademic, false-ademic, stupidemic, crime-ademic,
pandemic.
Well, at any rate, it's a stupid time of the year run by total criminals from the Committee of 300. You may want to consider acupuncture. And there is one and only one acupuncturist I can recommend strongly, Dr. Jill, at the Wellness Concepts Clinic, 1200 East Woodhurst, Suite R300, 877-1300, wellnessconceptsclinic.com, Dr. Jill. And we're already ready for talking about biogenics.
And again, just a quick reminder for those who are tuning in and those who are joining us for the first time, as a matter of fact, we've had a different format for this, for our show, radio show, and now Facebook Live, for a specific reason. We will take any question you have in the second part of the radio, which is in the next half an hour after we do the initial introduction and a topic. And the reason why we want to focus on a topic is because, well, this topic is worth mentioning. And it has to do with self-regulation, biogenics, which is the original concept that was developed by Dr. Norm Shealy. We dedicated 2 shows already to that, and we're going to dedicate one more. And we're going to talk specifically about why, what, and how it's made and what it does for you. So in short, let's kind of round up very briefly a concept of the foundation and the idea for biogenics for those who are joining us for the first time.
Self-regulation. That's what it's all about. There are 28,000 scientific references behind autogenic training. And my PhD thesis developed biogenics out of that with over 60 different exercises. And every week or two, we produce a new one.
That's we've expanded now over 60 different exercises in the following ranges, and not that anything exists in a vacuum, but physical biofeedback, feedback from and to the body, also mental and emotional. Mental and emotional is extremely, extremely important, and that's the driver behind our behaviors, our actions, and therefore our consequences, what happens in our life. And if we care about what happens in our life, then we should care about how we think, how we act, how we respond to the world, how we act in the world, and also, do we truly know who we are? What is our true nature? And that's the spiritual component. And we're not telling people what to believe, how to believe, and that's a very individual, personal decision, but there's something greater than ourselves. And if you know it, And when it's the thing that drives us. It's the thing that gives us the why, and the why is a lot more important than the what, because you can figure out the what and how when you know why you're doing something. Motivation. And so the system of biogenics, just a quick summary for those who have, and he joined us as the last couple of shows. We've already talked about that quite a bit. But for those who haven't heard, biogenics is a system based on self-regulation from humanistic psychology, the care of a person and the approach to the person from the mind, body, and spirit perspective. And I'm fortunate to be working with and to have the founder of the system right here. And I understand the system came out as a necessity due to the medical healthcare system that doesn't work. Norm, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, the important thing is, it is truly a self-hypnosis type of thing, but it's safe and it's researched.
In other words, there's everything we do. And I'm going to go back to the concept of the Hippocratic Oath, because I still remember that, even though it's been over 20 years now. But in the Hippocratic Oath, the promise that every doctor makes when they enter the field of medicine, is do no harm. The first principle. And after you do no harm, do what works, and basically do the best you can. In other words, be the best. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. And unfortunately, in the world of medicine with drugs and surgery, that doesn't happen frequently. There's a lot of side effects, and the field of psychiatry, which is actually, well, we can use stronger words than this, has been nothing less of a disgrace, really.
It is definitely less safe than surgery, and less safe than drugs. There's not a single mood drug that I would recommend to any human being unless they're locked up in an insane asylum. That's it. For normal people, the drugs suck, and I am being kind because I'm on the radio.
And speaking of drugs and things and psychiatry and stress is behind over 80%. And there's been research behind that. So every statement we make, we don't just pull facts out of the air. We have reason, and we have behind everything that we say. And that's the beauty of that. Because if I'm not sure about something, if there's no scientific basis, we don't say it. But it's also part of the humanistic psychology. Science without a spirit, science without a purpose, science without heart is worthless, can actually be negative, as in when, for example, I'll use a strong language, Nazi Germany and otherwise. I mean, science was used inappropriately. And as a matter of fact, we see science used inappropriately in a number of occasions lately, but that's okay. I'll just stop right there. I'm not going to go any further. Again, just, for the benefit of the station, and as well as, again, we want to keep things civil pretty much. But the idea and the concept is that medicine should be healing. And in order to heal, you need to have mind, body, and spirit. And you need to have the appreciation of a human being in the holistic, entirely comprehensive perspective. And this is a system that does that. And it's founded on this principle that a human being, and this is one of the exercises, I have a physical body, and I am more than my physical body. Pay attention to, and I am more. We're not denying that there's a physical body, but we're saying that we are a lot more significant than just what meets the eye. More than the meat suit, the so-called, that we wear. I have feelings, thoughts, and emotions, and I am more than my feelings, thoughts, and emotions, which means to say it's perfectly reasonable, and it's actually necessary to understand, become aware, and respond, and to deal proactively with your thoughts, feelings, and emotions wherever they are, whatever they are. They could be positive or negative. And the first thing is to acknowledge, and second is to have tools. And this is where a biogenic system comes in. And we talked a lot about that in the last several shows. And of course, reaching your full potential, or the self-actualization. And Maslow, for example, Mr. Maslow, had created in the 1950s the hierarchy of needs, with self-actualization becoming your best self, optimal self, best self, as the highest desire of any human being. And that pyramid starts, by the way, with physical basic needs, and then ascends in the order of as a human being ascends practically. And the interesting thing about this as well is that Well, sorry, I'm having a little volume problem here with my microphone. I think we're fixed. Is that there is actually, it's not just the exercises, and all the exercises are based on PhD project and a lot of research, over 34,000 successful outcomes. But now we have introduced the concept of sound and frequencies. And for those who are interested in about how the brain works, we talked about how the brain communicates and the languages of the brain. Now, Dr. Shealy has been working with sound and frequencies, how many decades now?
4
decades.
plus.
Would you like to briefly mention your history, exposure, and about that? And I'll jump in as well.
Well, to me, I recognized very quickly that the Biogenics exercises were more effective if I included good music with it. And so from the beginning, essentially from the mid-70s, we have actually included background music. And then, of course, once we learned frequencies, then we knew that we could add gamma, the frequency of in the zone, the total detachment, total happiness, total peace frequency of the brain and the body and the mind.
And that's absolutely fantastic, because gamma is what's absent in pretty much major chronic medical or mental disease. So adding gamma into the mix, and gamma can be added by several mechanisms. I'll mention briefly, but this will be a topic for another conversation, another radio program, and it doesn't need a full radio program for that. It's just that important, is the PEMF. But let's mention briefly about that.
Well, it, in my opinion, is the greatest invention in the history of the human race. It reorganizes the brain safely. It reduces inflammation and swelling. It increases ATP, your energy production. It rebalances your night and day circadian rhythm. It improves circulation and blood supply. It increases oxygen to the body's tissues, healthy levels of growth factors, and nitric oxide, essential in every cell. It increases cell metabolism. Production of endogenous antioxidants, critical. Enhanced detoxification, wound healing, tissue regeneration, stimulates and rebalances the entire immune system, improved conductivity and regeneration, promotion of growth gene factors, support of neural stem cell production, reduced pain, autophagy, enhanced neurotransmitter levels, effect on monoamine function, reduced reaction time, and basically cures addiction and anxiety and depression.
Wonderful. Now, that list actually goes on. I mean, there's got a lot more pages in there, but the concept and the idea is it's a wonderful device, and we'll devote the entire show to it. But that's not the only way to get gamma in your system. Actually, let's talk about the frequencies, the brain waves, and the languages of the brain. Now, that to me, that's a fascinating topic and conversation. And I'll share how I started with sound and frequencies, and I'll keep it fairly brief, but I don't want to tell you what it does as well. So I've always been into empiric science. Before I make any statements, before I go off in so to speak, chasing butterflies, and they're wonderful. Butterflies are wonderful, but I want to make sure there's scientific basis, which is why I love working with Dr. Shealy. We stick by the science, and if we can prove something, we'll say it. Now, frequencies in the brain and that whole entire picture has been around for over 5 or 6 decades that we know of. Binaural beats, in other words, it's a brainwave technology, has been known since 1950s. And as a matter of fact, I am on the board of advisors and on the IRB research development with the Institute, and I've had a number of programs and education with the Institute as well. The interesting thing is this is where I started learning about the brainwave and the frequencies. Now, Dr. Shealy beat me by a couple of decades to it, but it's fascinating in that it really is the language of the brain. It's how the brain communicates. It's how the brain perceives. It's how the brain reacts. And Dr. Shealy, being a neurosurgeon, is what's the most important organ in the human body?
The brain, of course. It controls everything. Now, other organs are important, but it is the master game. And of course, it is working. If you're listening to us and understanding us, your brain is ticking along somewhere between 13 and 22 cycles per second.
Mm-hmm.
That is the active learning, retaining
Wonderful.
frequency.
And that language, that frequency, that range actually goes up to 30, but between 20 and 30, there's anxiety.
Well, when it gets above 22, it begins to be anxious. By 30, you don't want it.
You don't want that. Okay. So that, and that's a very wonderful, interesting concept, because that's called beta, the name for that frequency, that range, and it's well known in neuroscience. It's actually an established fact. And when you use beta as a background in the frequencies and the recordings behind the points that need to be emphasized, it actually helps the brain absorbs and get that information, but only if you choose to do that. If you choose to accept that, if it's good for you. In other words, I've been asked also multiple times, what about the concept of brainwashing, or, well, you're being brainwashed right now by the media. That's brainwashing. Having the frequencies of sound that basically supports your brain into being its best.
We are not brainwashing, however. We are teaching. There is a big difference.
Yes.
We're in the 13 to 20 range.
Yes.
But when you get overloaded, then you need to relax.
Yeah.
And if you have a frequency of 8 to 12 cycles per second, you are relaxed. It's a nice, pleasant feeling.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a little bit deeper into theta, 4 to 7 cycles per second, that is actually what I call creative visualization. There you are relaxed, but you also get new ideas. It does stimulate some new ideas. Now, if you want to go all the way, go to sleep, then you go down to delta, which is 1 to 3 cycles per second. But the frequency for, true innovation, intuition, creativity is gamma, the ideal frequency of which is 40 cycles per second.
And interestingly, how do you get to gamma? That's a different place to get. Therefore, it's not a very simple process. And we're actually going to be teaching this in a course on biogenics, how sound and frequencies works with your brain. But the fact of the matter is these frequencies are embedded into each of the exercises that are you will those who take the course will benefit from. And that's the beauty of that. So there you go, from delta through theta to alpha to beta. Beta is the alert and awake, but also anxiety, and then gamma. And it takes an interplay between all of those to create the perfect states. You can't just throw a number of frequency out there and expect it to work. The brain is a very complicated organism, and there's multiple pathways. So again, without getting into too much detail, and we'll get into all the detail in the course that we're going to be teaching on biogenics, as well as the biogenics itself, I'm just excited to be able to offer that information.
Well, there is wonderful created music specifically for each exercise.
Exactly. And that has frequencies, it has music, and it has support for the brain to do what it needs to do to internalize and take advantage or make the best of the message in the biogenic system, which is already amazing. And that to me is fantastic.
Well, I agree. And on the other hand, if you can't do it on your own, then you need our Gamma Pimp. It's the only one that's been unequivocally proven. And next week, by the way, we are starting a research project because I believe it actually produces anandamide. Anandamide is a normal hormone produced by the brain, and it is the bliss creative hormone. So we're going to test and measure before and after gamma stimulation of the brain.
Now, that's a study I'm looking forward to.
Yes.
How many people? 10 people?
10 people. I've already got them lined up.
Dr. Shealy, it's good to have you. How many research projects have we had recently? Have we done recently? A lot of fun ones, actually.
The telomere study?
Oh, yes.
Well, now that I want to talk about, since you brought that up.
Yes, sir.
This is in my opinion, the greatest stress in the history of humanity. Probably worse than the bubonic plague, because when the bubonic plague was long, we didn't have television and radio.
Yes, to amplify it, make it worse.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Here is from a patient who was not in our study, but for the past week, I've been so extremely stressed and worried, emotionally exhausted, with stiffness and pain in neck, shoulders, and upper back, made worse by chiropractic adjustment, unable to sleep, with heart pounding, having hot sweats, squeezing pain in my chest. And in the research study, which we're just finishing, instead of growing the telomeres, which were happening before the pseudodemic, they grew 8% in 6 months. In the last 6 months, they shrank 8%.
Now, Norm, in reality, if you take the loss and what should have been the gain together, it's 16%, 16 to 20%, isn't it?
Well, the important thing is it's the equivalent of 8 years of life.
Oof.
That's what the bottom line means. People are dying, and they're not dying of the virus. They're dying of the panic created by the media and the false media.
And all of the consequences and outfalls of that.
Exactly.
I mean, that's...
it's loss of income. I mean, this particular person was a real estate dealer.
Oh, God, yes.
Her business has fallen off so much, she's in panic.
Exactly. Now, I see people in the emergency room as well. And I'm actually heading down to the emergency room overnight, and I got a couple of nights ahead of me. I like to keep myself in the loop, and I do like emergency room work, the blood and the guts and variety of everything. I must admit, I do have that adrenaline drive from time to time. It's getting better. But that's interesting. Between everything, I've seen so many COVID patients, COVID positive, so to speak. But the COVID is just a test that detected a positive thing. It had nothing to do with their clinical condition other than anxiety, stress, panic, and lack of self-care. And the deteriorating every single condition of their that they ever had, between blood pressure, diabetes, everything is getting worse. Everything is suffering. People are not taking care of themselves, and the professionals are not available. People are getting the heart bypass surgeries canceled. And they're usually dead before they get to the next chance. And guess what? That's a COVID statistic. So yes, was COVID responsible? I'm going to say yes, but not the virus, the system. And I can talk about millions of other examples: uncontrolled diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, heart attacks, strokes, panic attacks. Panic attacks about tenfold increase in my emergency room practice. Tenfold. I'm not kidding you.
And I would like to offer people again free beginning of Biogenics autogenic training.
Yes.
Go to our website, Real Holistic Doc, RealHolisticDoc.com. Sign up for Autogenic Focus. It's an 18-minute exercise, which is the background for everything else. And if you will practice that twice a day for 3 months, after that, you only need a minute a day.
Actually, I've developed a one breath technique on the whole thing. I just think of it. Boom, there it is.
Yeah, I just one phrase. My arms and legs are heavy and warm, and I'm there.
Exactly, and I feel all the others already, because it's a conditioned response. It's a training. It's a reset of the autonomic, sympathetic, parasympathetic, central nervous system as well. And it's just a wonderful system, and it also has the frequencies and sound behind it. So we're going to basically, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to start taking phone calls and questions about anything about self-regulation, biogenics. And we are on the topic of self-regulation for a reason, because of the time and the place where we are. There is a need for self-regulation and stress management when the stress is the highest. And right now, I don't remember a time that like this ever before.
Interestingly, NIH is offering $5 million of research on this subject right now.
I think we should just get the 5 million because we have the answer.
I agree.
Okay, well, we should
apply for it.
Yes,
sent you an email today.
And then that's a yes. Okay, let's help the world, and one person at a time. And I think we're almost done with with our initial half-hour introduction to the topic. And give us a call. Anything goes. And we're actually off the radio, but we're still on Facebook Live. Now, Dr. Shealy, what words of wisdom, or what from the last half an hour would you contribute? Anything else on top of that, or summary or suggestions?
The most important thing is to be ready to do it. In other words, it won't work if you don't do it. You have to practice.
You have to practice. In other words, and what are some of the reasons that people don't do this? Why? In other words, let me rephrase. Why?
They're so preoccupied with their anxiety, they won't let it go long enough to take the time. But nothing is more important.
Mm-hmm. Whereas the solution is staring them right in the face, right there. And it's actually fascinating to me Actually, I'm going to ask you something. I've had 2 decades of clinical experience. Well, a little over 2 decades, but you've had how many years of
64 and a half years.
Give me number, if you, I know the short notice, but give me 1, 2, and 3, and maybe 4 reasons why people don't take care of themselves and why they should.
They get preoccupied and distracted with simple things like hunger and anxiety, and they eat junk to take care of their anxiety, which makes it worse.
So nutrition, the foundation.
Absolutely.
And we talk about lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
Lifestyle is the foundation. If you don't do anything else, if you do absolutely nothing else that we talk about, this is the message for everyone out there. Lifestyle, nutrition, activity, exercise, sleep, stress management, body mass index. It's essential.
And antioxidants at the top.
Antioxidants.
You don't have to eat 20 servings of vegetables a day. You can take it in a slush. That's what I do every morning. I get more than that with a few other things, but I start my day with 20 servings of antioxidants.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And actually, I do the same. I follow the system. It makes me feel fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a morning slush. You put things together. Just it's great. Low calories makes you feel great, you know? Yeah.
And high protein.
And high protein. That's right.
We do not need fats or carbohydrates. We can make everything out of protein.
With few essentials in the food supply and careful planning, we can actually do very well without most of the junk.
Well,
as a matter of fact,
the junk. It can absolutely do better with no junk.
No junk. Well, for some people, it's going to be a gradual transition there, but that's and if it takes if it takes a person, I've learned this. I will actually meet a person clinically in my wellness practice in the emergency room wherever they are. So if they're willing to, for example, to go from 5 sodas a day to 4 sodas a day, you know what? I'm still willing to work with that person just because they're doing something. And when they wake up eventually to say, why am I, what's keeping me from my best self? Why am I not taking care of myself? And I want to do this, then we can go full speed ahead. What's your perspective?
Well, do it or die.
That's a choice.
That's simple.
To do is a choice. To not to do or to wait or to procrastinate is a choice. And I'm gonna again put this back in the hands or in the corner, or so to speak, of whoever is listening. If you're interested in this message, is that there's only one person responsible for your life, your health, and the outcomes of what happens to you, your universe, so to speak. And that person is, guess what?
You. After age 18. Until then, your parents have some degree of control.
Yes. Well, although 18 is now becoming an interesting marker. Some people are acting like children well into the 30s, and some people grow up in their 12.
That is misbehavior at the beginning.
Yes. So just for anyone who is watching us on Facebook Live, and how much time do we have before the 1 minute? So we'll just go for a little bit, and then we'll restart the actual official radio.
Remember, every thought is a prayer.
Yes.
Thinking sets in motion spiritual forces to bring about change in body, mind, emotions, hopes, companions, despair. Thinking is the key. Think straight. And remember, there is only one purpose in life: to help other people.
To be of service. That's absolutely right. And I'm just going to say, and if you are not sure of how powerful your mind is, or if you're not sure how to use your mind, how to train your mind, if you're not sure what your mind is, a lot of people don't even know themselves, check out the Biogenics system for self-regulation, self-control, and mastery of your life. I like that. Mastery of your life. That's what it comes down to, literally. Do you want to be in control of your life? Do you want to go where you want to go? Or do you want somebody else to take you somewhere else? And we're almost back.
92.3 KICK and 99.5 KADI.
Now, back to Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Norm Shealy and Dr. Sergey Sorin.
And now is your turn to call 417-447-1777. We will be happy to talk to you about anything, because everything is related to your health.
Mm-hmm.
So We've been talking about biogenics, but there are other aspects of life. And I think my second favorite would be physical activity.
Yes.
Every morning, hey, there we go. Rob, we've got a call. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling from Canada, and I'm listening to your show, really enjoying it.
Thank you.
Just have a question. I have the Biogenics, and I've been using it twice a day for 2 months. And I noticed that you have a whole slew of other ones. So I'm just wondering, I mean, I'd like to do them all, but it's again fitting the time in.
Let me jump in on this. There's actually Dr. Shealy since the 1970s, 1974, as a matter of fact. It was a big year. That's when I was born, and that's when he created the system. So he was already kind of a couple of years ahead of me. But I came in at a good time. Let's put it that way. We started with a core number of exercises, and so autogenic training is number one, and then there's a series of several exercises that we usually use as a standard flow, and that's going to be part of the course that's coming up with Biogenics, to guide you through in a systematic fashion so that you can get the best benefit out of the system. So watch for that. I look forward to that. After the central core, then there's other exercises that are helpful, but not necessarily essential for everybody. They're more so for as need basis. Okay.
And I would say, do you have a specific problem that you need help with?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm working on it for high blood pressure.
Ah, that's a great one. Now what I would do is feeling the pulse in your hand. Start with being able to feel the pulsation of your heartbeat in your right hand.
Okay.
And just pay attention to it only in your hand.
Okay.
And then as you feel the pulse in your right hand, pretend that it is getting lighter or softer or slower.
Okay.
And once you've learned to do that in your hand, then you can imagine your heart slowing down in the same way. And you can actually begin to feel it even in your chest. Perhaps the next easy place to feel it in your throat.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But not in your head, though.
No, never in your head. Yeah. Never anywhere, but you can feel it in your ear, but not inside your head.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for calling. Have a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Righto. Okay, bye now.
Thank you for checking in.
And good afternoon. You're on the air.
Dr. Norm?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. My name is Margaret. I can't believe I got through.
You did.
I'm desperate. Everything you talked about the first few minutes ago, I've been suffering, but not because of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But the pandemic has made it exponentially worse.
Of course.
So I listened to you on Vincent Finelli's show, and it was just the kindness of the maker that I found that show. And I'll be really brief because I know you're busy. My mother was in cognitive decline for years. She had multiple back surgeries, osteoporosis. She was on all kinds of drugs. And it took me over 10 years to actually get custody of her. So I literally had to kidnap her to get her. Mm-hmm. And I got her to sleeping all night, and I got all the pills gone except for generic Coreg for blood pressure. And I was so happy. She was gaining weight. You know, she still has short-term memory. It's just burnt from opioid use. But we were so happy, and we went to the doctor for a checkup, and all of her blood labs, the anemia was gone. I mean, and then he said, oh, let's check her thyroid. Well, that was 3 years ago. She's now 77. So, you know, I just thought, oh, that's great, because she had all the classic symptoms of underactive thyroid, you know, the osteoporosis, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, the minute we started the levothyroxine, it went downhill. Like once it gets in her system, she was having violent diarrhea and losing weight. I mean, you could slice ham with her hip bones. And then I took her off of it because I wasn't, you know, and then they gaslighted me saying, oh, she could go in a myodexia coma. So then we went on Synthroid, and it was worse, faster. So then we went to endocrinology, and she couldn't answer any of my questions, and we put her on Armour, the lowest dose, and it was the same thing. It causes her eyes to bulge and turn yellow, and she still can't get her weight up. And now she's got terrible esophageal strictures. Okay. And I heard you say about taking the body temperature a couple of weeks ago. So I've been doing that.
Well, the only thing that she should try, in my opinion, is the Ring of Air with air. I'm sorry, the Ring of Fire with Fire Bliss. It's the use of essential oils which you dab onto 12 specific acupuncture points. And I would give her a small amount of iodine, preferably 150 micrograms a day.
Do you sell that?
We sell it as liquid iodine, yes.
Good, because she can't swallow pills. Okay, I'll order it. 150 micrograms daily?
Yes, yes.
And that's
in liquid iodine. Mm-hmm. And then the Fire Bliss you can also get from our website.
Okay, and I got to tell you something. She's had a DO. You were talking about find a DO. Mm-hmm. She's had a DO the whole time, and they just switched. So we have a new doctor, mm-hmm. and I'm telling you, I'm up every night for 3 years reading all the forums, and this thyroid pill business is just not. It's just corrupt. I mean, they don't know what they're doing, and I was desperate because it's like it is torn my nerves. Mm-hmm. At first, I thought I was giving her something to mess with, something maybe she was allergic to, but it's just been, and it's triggered like psoriatic arthritis.
Immune system involvement. That's
and again, by the way, for autoimmune diseases, Fire Bliss is the best of the 5 as well.
Yeah, actually.
Do you have any like liquid vitamins I should give her? Now, I need to tell you that her blood labs, ever since I got her, she's eating at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day.
Wonderful.
And I can't thank you enough for you sharing your knowledge. And I do give her like a pat of butter because I know she needs a healthy fat. It's a miracle she has survived what they've put her through.
Well, she made it through the system.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a liquid vitamin. However, you can take Dr. Shealy's Essentials and blenderize it in some water or apple juice.
I have another suggestion. You may want to consider, and so we're talking about. I'm just going to summarize for the folks who are listening, and this is a very good question on the subject of immune system, on the subject of thyroid support, and on the subject of overall general health. Now, there are really good supplements that are very helpful in the short term as well as in the long term. But one of the long term supplements that I'd like to recommend is something called Autoimmune X, or there are several variants on that. And it's made by the company called Pristine. Now, we don't sell it, but I like the company. I use it myself for about 4 or 5 years. It can be put in a powder and dissolved and adjusted accordingly. It's great for immune system. It's great for the gut, and it's great for a functioning of the organs.
Yeah, because the esophageal stricture mess, they wanted to go in and scope her, and she actually tore her esophagus. That's how we found out. So everything now is pureed, which is good because I don't have to cook it as long.
Yes, ma'am.
So she's getting more nutrients. So Dr. Shealy's Essentials, along with the Autoimmune X Pristine.
Yes, Essentials.
And Fire Bliss. I definitely
Fire Bliss and liquid iodine.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Oh, you do not know. This is the first light at the end of the tunnel. I've been through 3 years of just trauma.
Let me
I
jump
feel
in.
like we've been robbed,
Yes, ma'am. Let me just jump in and just mention something briefly. And, the concern and the thought that you mentioned is that, the frustration with the medical system and not getting the outcomes that we should be getting, or people should be getting. And the fact of the matter is, don't expect out of the chronic, out of the, not acute, but the chronic healthcare system to do miracles in what it's not supposed to be doing. Again, the system is there to provide long-term support for chronic illnesses, whereas what our concept is, and if somebody wants to do it, that's fine. Not a problem. They do a great job. What we do is we reverse and we work with the whole person to see what was the root cause and what and how to reverse it. And by the way, if you ever need a consultation, we're happy to do so over the phone.
Yes,
and
I'm in North Carolina. I'll tell you this: my son actually had to go to Missouri a couple weeks back to work, and they have run us crazy with this pandemic because nobody wants to come in and kill grandma. So I looked up your number and I sent your clinic number with my son because he was like an hour and a half away from your town. I looked it up and I said, if you get a temperature, if anything, I said, you call because I said, do not go to the ER. You call Dr. Shealy and Dr. Sorin first, because, he's afraid too. I mean, we've just been, brainwashed to the point of, and then there's poor little grandma who's so skinny,
Oh, God.
So I just thank you both so much. And I will be placing my order tonight.
Thank you so much. Blessings, my dear.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Have a good one.
And I just want to say, it's a blessing to have, do we have another caller, by the way?
And now is your turn. 417-447-1777. Now is the time to get your questions answered free of charge right here on KICK.
So the question, the last caller who was an absolutely fantastic conversation. I'm not sure for those who on Facebook Live are able to hear the questions and the discussion, but if so, that's great. But I'm just going to summarize briefly. A lot of folks are suffering through the healthcare system or the sick care system. Now, again, I am very neutral, and I appreciate all the tools that are available. I'm still an emergency room doc. I'm an allopathic physician. I'm happy and proud to be an allopathic physician with the knowledge, information, and the skills, surgical and medical and otherwise. But it's not the only solution. There's a lot of things that need a different approach.
Well, in chronic disease, there is not a single chronic disease that I know that I would allow conventional medicine.
That's
Not
correct.
one.
Me as well, personally. Absolutely. And if there's anybody who...
moment of every day affects your health. So the more time you spend being distracted and agitated, the greater your problems are going to be.
And I do want to say about people being afraid to visit the so-called vulnerable, in other words, older than 60 or however they call old. How old are you right now?
Well, I'm only 87.
And how old do you feel?
26.
Okay, so there goes that. Okay, but regardless, Dr. Norm Shealy is a wonderful specimen of human being. I mean, no question about it. But we're all capable of amazing things. And again, the concept of self-regulation, self-care, wanting and following through on things that we should, doing the right thing. That's just it, doing the right thing. Now, I do want to talk about doing the right thing in the social context. And this is going to go against the CDC and the NIH suggested guidelines, because I see a lot of older folks through the emergency room in my practice who are basically withering away. They're dying. They don't have attention. They don't have love. They don't have support, all at the pretense of fear of spreading the virus. And a lot of those folks are actually healthier than the young people who are basically, in terrible shape. It's the immune system. So if you're thinking about it, and again, I'm not telling anybody what to do, but if you have loved ones out there and you're concerned about the coronavirus or COVID-19, just think about it. There are precious moments, minutes, hours, days, months, years, possibly, if this doesn't go away on whatever reason, and it might not. This might be a new normal. Who knows? We'll have to see. I hope not. But the concept is, you've got a life to live. You've got loved ones. Use your knowledge. Use your common sense. Go beyond the news. See what works, see what doesn't, and judge for yourself. And if you really got a loved one, the best thing you can do for them is not to ignore them. Is not to basically drop them off in a little cubby hole somewhere and just say, okay, I'm going to save your life by not calling you even. That's not how that works.
Well, I can say that virtually, every week, my daughter comes to visit me, and we've not hesitated to do that. And she's all over the place. Mm-hmm. But I enjoy and appreciate. My favorite statement is, if you're going to have children, have at least one daughter.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm in touch with my mom, and I'm the only son, so she doesn't have the privilege of having a daughter at this point. We're a little older now, but I do the same. But it's yeah.
Well, the important thing is, I think, in general, if you're not ill, you should visit your family.
And don't be afraid to live. I just want to say this. This is a big concept. Now, we talk about self-regulation. We talk about capacity for self-improvement, being your optimal self. And absolutely everyone should strive for that. You deserve it. And if you don't think you deserve it, give us a call and we'll remind you that you deserve it. And we'll show you how to get there. But the idea and the concept is, live your life. Fear, hesitation, all those negative things. You don't need that.
Detach. My favorite word in the entire world in any language is detach from those things you cannot change. Mm-hmm. And for me, I detached from all the negativity related to this false-epidemic, fake-epidemic, fraud-epidemic,
Plandemic.
stupid-epidemic.
Yeah.
I've got them here. Fake-epidemic, fraud-epidemic, pseudo-epidemic, crime-epidemic, pan-epidemic, exploit-epidemic,
Oh, that's good.
evil-epidemic. That's my word for the current nonsense.
I think we can come up with a few more.
So now, folks, remember, you could also get my book, 90 Days to Self-Help, by signing up for my free email newsletter. And it gives you all of the background. It actually is a layer-sized version of my PhD in psychology.
Based on Biogenics.
Based on Biogenics. That was where it was. It all came from my PhD at Humanistic Psychology Institute, now changed to Saybrook Institute, but it is still the original Humanistic Psychology Institute.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, please.
I'm sorry?
No, you were going to say something, yeah.
No?
Okay. And there is actually another book that has come out since, 30 Days to Self-Help. Now, not that it takes 30 days now instead of 90 to self-regulate. It still takes...
For people who won't spend 90 days, there's 30 days.
There's 30 days. So what the goal is there is we'll get you started for the first 30 days. And the fact of the matter is you're going to like being in control. You're going to like the new you. And you're going to want to keep going for the next 2 months. And that's the idea. But start one day at a time. Be here now. Be present.
That is, of course, the most important thing in the world. Any moment when you feel distracted or irritated, the time is now to just stop it.
And how do you get to that place from somebody who's never been there? Or
by practicing autogenic training.
And the Biogenics.
Arms and legs are heavy and warm.
Exactly.
My heartbeat is calm and regular. My breathing is free and easy. My abdomen is warm.
Mm-hmm.
My forehead is cool. My mind is quiet and still. Those are the phrases of someone who is going into a pleasant, safe, healing, self-hypnotic trance.
And that's actually a very powerful biofeedback technique. Now, biofeedback can cost thousands of dollars and be, many, many hours to be effective.
But originally, it was called autogenic feedback training by Elmer Green, the creator of biofeedback.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the foundation for everything in biofeedback.
Biofeedback. And I just want to break down a few key components. Now, unfortunately, and this is my experience, but feel free to share yours, many people don't even realize who they are. They don't know what their true potential is. They don't know what they're capable of. They're stuck in a certain pattern. They're stuck in a certain box, so to speak, that's not been serving them most of the time. And most people don't even believe that they have the power or capacity to do anything about it. And that is the first thing that needs to go. Now, we talked about several things. Number one, if anybody's got any kind of health or otherwise issues, first and foremost, hope. It's not now the hope versus hopelessness. And the hope is essential, and hope and faith. Go ahead.
Well, I want to teach one of my favorite techniques for pain control. Once you know that there's nothing the medical profession can or should do for your pain, learn to breathe through your hand. Imagine with every breath you're breathing in and out through the skin of your hand. And even with the first breath, I began to feel my hand become lighter. Mm-hmm. And after 20 minutes, it becomes numb enough to have surgery. Mm-hmm. Once you train yourself to breathe in and out through the skin of your right hand, and it can become numb, then you can switch that to any pain in your body and learning to breathe through in and out through that part of your body. You can make it numb. It's the greatest pain control in the world. I've had major surgery using that technique.
Let's talk about that surgery, because that's important for people to realize, because this is...
That particular surgery was in 1976. I developed a sinus infection. They had to go through my nose all the way up under the pituitary into the sphenoid sinus. And I said, give me 20 minutes and I'll be ready. And I numbed my nose. And finally I said, okay, I'm ready. And I had no pain. I could hear the sound of bone crunching, but there was no pain. Mm-hmm. Came out of the surgery, and I called up my favorite intuitive at the time, Bob Nightman, and I said, Bob, what was I thinking wrong that got me into this sinus infection in the first place. He said, well, not everything is from thinking wrong. You got exposed to the wrong, nose intake.
Well, and this is where holistic approach comes in, because yes, there's a place for conventional medicine, surgery, drugs, and all kinds of things. There is a place for everything. So we are open to whatever works, whatever tools are appropriate. I'm going to share my little story, my personal story about how to use this. Now, it's not as dramatic as yours, not by far, but it does have a little pre-story or pretext. And the story is, ever since I was a kid, I had a terrible experience with a dentist. And so the fear, and I'm going to share this. I see this a lot with the folks out there in the emergency room, in the clinic. The fear is about 80 to 90% of how the unpleasantness or concern with the pain comes up. If you take away the emotional, the fear, and the anticipation component, the actual pain is a sensation, literally a sensation. Now, we're not saying it's pleasant. We're not saying you want to have it, but you can actually work with it, live with it, and you can actually manage it, and it doesn't have to run your life. How's that for a concept? And so I applied the same concept to a dental procedure. I had to have several what do you call those things when they drill cavities?
Root canals.
Not a root canal, but it was a pretty deep drill. And I actually made a point. I said, I'm gonna see if I can do what Norm did with his sinus surgery with the teeth. And normally my heart rate goes goes into a palpitation mode again, post-traumatic. We all have post-traumatic. I still remember how it happened as a kid, by the way. But again, that's how powerful that stuff is. I felt no pain. I felt the sensation. I felt the vibration. I had no emotional significance to it. I did not require any single injection. And when they were done, I said I could go again if I have to. I mean, that much freedom. I love it.
So you can learn to train your body and your mind to control everything, as long as you know what you're doing, and that's where Biogenics comes in.
And now let's talk about how it's applicable. Blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, these are all things under your control. And mental health, anxiety, depression, that's even more so. Well, basically, let's put it this way. Every single chronic human condition will benefit from self-regulation. Any other thoughts of wisdom?
No, every thought is a prayer. Think health. Think positive.
Mm-hmm.
Think relaxation. Be at peace with yourself and the world. Crazy as the world is, still be at peace with it.
And I'm going to actually jump in for the benefit of our listeners. Take advantage of the opportunity here at hand. Now, we're going to continue this topic at some point, but in every crisis, there's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to transcend, and to become stronger than ever. That's the opportunity I'm taking to become the best Sergey that I can be. To optimize myself, to see how I can work with the challenges and create a better, stronger version of myself. And you can do the same in everything, including in the pandemic. Blessings.
Think health.
And so I think our radio listeners are now, we're going to wait until next week, actually. Next is the station, Wednesday, same time, same place. But let's continue talking a little bit, just summarize briefly on the concept of, anything else comes to mind. We got a couple of minutes for the Facebook Live audience. Any thoughts, any other words, wisdom, or anything else from the one and only Dr. Norm Shealy? How about that?
Well,
May I help you with that?
Not quite sure at this point, but whatever comes up, you've got a week to decide.
Yes. So I'm just going to jump in, and I'm going to say to the, say hello to the audience out there. Feel free to send us messages, information, questions, and our team will address it. Will help you get to the place that you need to be. And the concept and the idea is, if you're not living your full optimal life, the best you can be, the best person you can be, the best human, the best professional, the best of whatever it is that's important to you, then think about it. Are you worth it? Are you interested? Do you want to be your best self? Do you want to be able to have responsibility, capacity, and the desire to follow through on the things that are important in your life? And if you do, there's plenty of ways, and you have unlimited power to change your surroundings, your life, your everything, the outcomes that happen. It's actually a pretty simple world out there. Of course. And we are going to finish our discussion at this point. Thank you for being with us, and join us again on Wellness Wednesdays. 4 p.m. Central Standard.